Hey, what's up, classic TV and movie fans? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about The Twilight Zone. More specifically, about one of, I would say, the underrated episodes of The Twilight Zone. Let me know in the comments down below or by liking this video if you want me to cover more of The Twilight Zone, because I'd really love to cover more episodes that maybe aren't that popularized or that people don't really talk about much. We see the normal ones, the one about Bill Shatner, we see the one with To Serve Man, but there are so many good ones that I really want to deep dive into a lot of them. And the one I will be looking at today is Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? Now this is a season 2 episode 28. It's a great one in my opinion, and yes, there will be spoilers in this video, so in case you don't want the ending spoiled, then you probably want to watch that first before you watch this video. I'm going to get into one of the actors who pretty much has the twist ending at the end. He was played by Barney Miller, and I'll go into it in just a little bit. I'm kind of going to break down the episode in just a very simple way. Essentially what happens in here, there's a frantic phone call about a crashed spaceship. Now, two policemen are driving by a diner one snowy evening, and they try and determine who amongst the passengers of a bus at this roadside diner is from another world. That is, someone in that diner is an alien. And it's kind of a really fun mystery to guess, wait, who was on that bus and who was the odd man or woman out? And the whole episode takes place in this diner. It's very fascinating. There are people who were passengers on the bus who were couples, and then there was this weird guy with these googly eyes, and he was making all these sounds, and well, kind of leads you to think maybe this is the alien. But then there's another guy who is more serious. He's older, he's more educated, he has a lot more money, that is by the look of him. We think, well, that can't be the alien, right? And then, well, maybe is it the guy at the diner? Well, no, that can't be it. Wait, maybe is he the bus driver? Maybe he's one of the cops. And so you start to doubt and ask all these questions of who is who. Now, as the episode begins to wind down, weird stuff begins to happen in the diner. The electricity flickers, the jukebox turns on, it turns off. Even the glass container holding the sugar in each of the tables explodes, and sugar goes everywhere, and everyone begins to be frightened. And as everyone gets on the bus again, because the storm blew over so they can safely return, the bus leaves, and a little bit later we see one of the individuals return. Now, the man who returns is the older gentleman known as Ross. He sits at the diner at the counter, and he begins to talk with the diner, or the guy who basically runs the diner, the owner. And they begin to chat, and we start to see something weird. We start to see that the man who we think was one of the passengers of the bus was actually the alien. That was him. And so that is in itself unexpected. When we see the three hands moving around, it's pretty creepy and it's a really cool effect. But then the twist at the end that really gets us again, the one we never saw coming, was the guy who worked at the diner was another alien, an unexpected alien himself. He was probably living there for a long time, and he has a third eye. And we're going to talk about that third eye and the prosthetic and kind of how they did it. Remember, this was the 1960s, and how the actor himself, Barney Miller, said it was done. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about the first Martian, that is the actor Hoyt, or Ross. Now, it's pretty surprising how he lights a cigarette, drinks a cup of coffee, and uses 3 hands instead of 2. Now, this effect is fairly easy to accomplish. There was just someone crouched behind the actor John Hoyt, reaching an arm around and under one of his real arms. Now, the arm of the additional actor was clothed in the same materials as Hoyt's arm in an overcoat, and they draped it over his shoulders to obscure the fact that he had an extra arm that didn't come from his body. Now, with plenty of rehearsal, they actually made sure that everything was like a coordinated ballet. It was very fluid, and it looked very good and natural, so that the 3 hands would look essentially like a perfect illusion. And it looked fairly well. Now, unfortunately, if you look at the third eye, the guy from Venus, Barney Phillips, the guy from the diner, it was a little bit different. because it looked pretty much like something you'd see in a joke shop. Well, remember, 1961, even then it didn't look fantastic. Today, it really looks very aged. Now, what they did, it was still difficult to get that effect. According to Barney Phillips, they had run a wire over his head. I'll show you here from the top side of the eye prosthetic, and it was concealed in his hair, so you can't really see that part. And one of the property men was concealed behind him, basically under the counter. And he manipulated the trigger on the wire to make the rolling of the eyeball in the socket. Now, if you notice in the actual episode, that doesn't happen. What this essentially is telling me is that the effect didn't come out quite right. It didn't look great on camera, so in fact, they cut it out completely. Now, they had done a very big makeup job to kind of cover up just the end portion of the prosthetic so that it blended in with his forehead. Now, they made a cast of the eye socket to make sure it came out perfectly. And, well, they took about a day to work on fitting him with that device prior to the actual shooting of the show. Now, that wasn't the original way they were proposing to do it. They were actually trying to do a kind of a double exposure effect, which they didn't have to use a prosthetic at all. The problem was that the double exposure didn't work at all. In fact, you could still see through it, and you could have seen his forehead through the eye. It would have been like a ghostly effect, and it wouldn't have looked as real, allegedly, to the people who were on the show as a prosthetic did. But it wouldn't allow for any movement, and they would just have the eye blink, which they couldn't do with that double exposure effect, which again is interesting because they never really made it blink during the course of the episode. Let me know what you think. Was this episode in fact still impactful for you? Was it surprising? Because remember, there were really two twists. One, who the original alien was, Hoyt, or that is Ross, the older gentleman with the overcoat, and then the guy in the actual, the little diner cap. That was surprising as well, at least to me. And I don't know, I like the feeling in the episode. It's not rushed, but the buildup is just perfect. I love to read your thoughts down below. And let me know if you want to see me cover more Twilight Zone episodes with factoids, things like that, breaking down the episodes, things that I absolutely love doing. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, be hopeful. Thank you to everyone for the support, especially my Diamond tier patrons: Citizen Kane359, David D, Greg S, Kevin K, Ricky, Sally N, Ulysses the P, and Vito L. If you want to join the Patreon family, links are in the description. Thank you.